I just started the stream, so.
Oh
What do I
man,
want to listen to?
a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
I'm feeling some League music today, mostly because I don't want to listen to wubs.
No wubs.
Not feeling the wubs right now.
I think that's perfectly respectable.
Also, no one is here. It's just me sitting alone in this chat right now. All right.
That's okay. It's still like 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
Oh, I got an ad, right? Ooh, GetRECalled TV. I can't speak English, by the way. I don't know if is that an issue on this podcast?
I really couldn't tell you. I'm gonna devolve into coughing fit probably at least once during this cast, so.
I mean, it happens. It happens.
Wait, I was just typing something. Okay. Matches. I feel like a lot of people just have the at everyone turned off because we ping that a lot.
I mean, being less than. I just don't like. I mean, the only ads that I don't like are like the Iguana game shit, and that's just because I don't live anywhere near there, so it doesn't impact me like at all. But I respect them doing that and trying to get as many people in as possible for that cause.
I actually really like this song.
Which song are we listening to?
Awaken from the new cinematic.
So I don't remember it off the top of my head. So.
It was just in the background while all the cool stuff was happening. But...
Wait, maybe I totally remember that because she says like awaken like 6 times in a row, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well that's I feel that. So what do you think about the whole spectator thing?
So I just think that I think it's difficult right now that the league puts teams in position to be the good guys or the bad guys for leaving spectate on. I think the league itself needs to decide if they want to just have, you know, everybody turn spectate off, and we're just gonna have the streams as being the holy, like, reveal of everything. I'm sure teams will still private message each other, but like, you need to either have that stance or you need to have the stance of, you know, have spectate open, people are free to spectate, and realize that your stream later on in the week isn't gonna cut it for a lot of people.
I think that the big issue is that they only stream one game, right?
Yeah.
Because I like to watch full series, especially from, you know, teams that you know, I'm a direct competitor with or whatever. I think if we're not allowed to spectate, then we should have all the raffle files available to us if we want to do our research.
See, that's
if
also...
it's an issue of spoilers, like I don't know.
I just feel like
they're gonna get spoilers no matter what, right?
Yeah, I feel like this league is set up in particular to have kind of an interesting like interaction with all of that. Just because if you think about other amateur leagues, they're either played like our games are Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. We're casting them
Yeah.
live, and they have few enough teams that they can realistically get like every game casted every single week. But because we have so many teams, it like the one game a week is completely reasonable from a cast level perspective, unless you want Vid just to kill himself and not do anything except cast, in which case we need to financially support a position like that rather than just kind of, you know.
So I agree completely. Um, Especially in like a gold league where there's 20 fucking teams. Um, which is why I think having the option of, other people being able to stream, the games that aren't on stream is probably like, supplemental thing. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I also know that for League KC, I put the raffle files in the like stats page as soon as they were casted, and no one used them.
So I feel like specific people would use them. Like I could name like 5 people in Diamond who would likely use them, at least some, right? At least looking up opponents that they're playing that week. And I know there are a few teams that I would watch probably every single game of, just because I want to keep tabs on them. But
Anyway,
was it that time?
it is 6, so let's play an intro. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to week 9 of Get Recalled. My name is Meristematic. I'm not very sick, but I am not feeling the best today. So apologies if I start, hacking and coughing during the cast. Try to keep it to a minimum, but no promises. With me, as usual, is Akato, who I don't think is sick.
I am significantly less sick, I would say. I feel pretty great. I'm sick of my teammates in solo queue, if that is a thing.
I
Um,
think that it is.
yeah, I've started to ban kill every single game if my top laner has any games on him, because I can't fucking jungle with the kill top. They're all just useless. So yeah.
Yeah. This week, we're going to recap what happened in week 8, go over the teams that clinched, the teams that have been eliminated, kind of lightly go over playoff scenarios, but I haven't had the energy or motivation to puzzle out every single one. And then we'll preview week 9, which has some really big games in it.
Yeah, no, there are definitely a lot of really big matchups here in the next couple weeks as we're coming in towards the end, coming up on playoffs, and it's exciting.
Yeah. So our diamond results from week 8. Landsneck took down Sky 0-2-1. Iron 5 with the upset over Good Game Losers 2-1. Unlucky Retribution didn't have to play against UCO. Those Thumb guys beat Graceland. They actually played that game, if I'm not mistaken. And then Return of the Middle Sticks 2-1 Team Fish Taco.
How you gonna call it an upset, man? The Iron Five were the clear favorites coming in. Imagine anybody thinking we would lose. Come on.
So first off, Landsneck able to take down Sky 2-0. Pretty convincing win for Landsneck, and it helps cement them as now they're top 6. They're no longer on the outside.
Yeah, no, I think that was a pretty significant game between the two of them because they were both tied at 3 wins. And with that, Snet kind of steps up over him and makes it pretty much impossible well, not quite impossible, but very hard at this point for Sky to end up leapfrogging them. So having that head to head is pretty massive in terms of securing them a playoff spot.
Yeah, Sky does still have other opportunities where they can leapfrog TFT. They can leapfrog some of the 5 and 2 teams as well if they get really lucky. But
Yeah,
in particular, passing Sneck's going to be difficult now.
for sure, for sure. It would require Schneck to lose out and Sky to win out, right?
Yes.
But I mean, Schneck has some rough matchups coming up, so not the end of the world for Sky. They still have options.
Yeah. And then Iron 5 with the upset over Good Game Losers. From a statistical perspective, we'll go with that one. GGL has been kind of the favorites all season, and now Dropped 2 games in a row, I believe, and maybe showing a couple cracks in their armor. No, they had a forfeit win over. Uh,
The last two series that they played,
yes.
which coincidentally have been, 4 weeks apart, but no, Iron Five were able to take them down. The game on stream was extremely close with Koala pulling out the Kaisa jungle. I've been saying for months, literally months, that Kaisa jungle is good, right? And my team would never let me pick it. But then fucking Koala pulls out against us. I'm kind of salty that he got to play it and I didn't. In the end, he wasn't able to carry. But overall, this it went 3 games. There were some really close games. I think by game 3 it was less close, and we kind of ended up winning it. But either way, a really good series.
Yeah, that's always rough. You have that pocket pick that you've been wanting to play, and then you see somebody else pull it out, and you're just like, ah, I can't anymore now.
Yeah, it feels bad, man. Now, if everyone else sees it, they'll be like, "Oh, he's copying Koala," but like literally months. But yeah. Either way, especially Mortally Divine, don't give that guy Lissandra, dude. Holy shit. Game 2, we gave him Lissandra, and he like fucking 1v9'd. He's a fucking beast. He actually just wins every single team fight with that champ. But yeah,
So
good
anyway, it
series.
levels off Iron 5 with GGL now at 5-2. Also ties them with Unlucky Retribution after their forfeit win. So the second buy spot looks pretty up in the air.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few teams vying for it, and a lot of these teams in the next few weeks are going to be playing against each other. Specifically, UR has to play GGL and Iron 5, so it's going to be really interesting to see who's able to secure that one.
Yeah. Our game of the week was Middle Sticks able to take down Team Fish Taco, and these games were excuse me.
You're fine.
These games were pretty closely contested for the most part, but Middle Sticks able to pull it out in the end.
Yeah, they really were, especially with the importance of Nidalee within the series, because Heimerdoodles is sort of a Nidalee main. Nintendo's has been picking it up recently, so it's definitely a really interesting series. A lot of fun, a lot of back and forth, and at the end of the day, our team's able to pull it out. But Team Fish Taco is still an extremely strong team, and they're sitting in an okay spot for playoffs. Definitely a team to watch for because they can definitely take games off of the highest end here.
Yeah, and I did want to point out that Fourth Shot actually had a fantastic series. Played 3 different champions, which controversial wasn't just the Sivir. He did get a Sivir game in, but 11-5 on Jinx in the loss and 9-3 on Zaya. Pretty solid performances from him, and maybe looking like that bot lane might not be the weakness that it has previously been for them.
Well, to be fair, Team Fish Taco's weakness is also their bottom lane, with Demon Repent and the new support. I believe it's Aheen. Is that who the new support is? Um, they haven't looked particularly strong so far this split. And even like game 3, it seemed like most of ROTM's effectiveness was from Tendies on the rec side, just snowballing the entire map. I'm not sure if I would necessarily credit too much towards Four Shots play, but he didn't run it down. And AD carries not running it down are definitely good things. So,
Yeah, and it felt like they weren't opting into the weird 2v2s as much. But anyway,
agreed.
uh,
Agreed.
let's take a peek at the standings now. RTM in first place at 6-1 now has that game lead over everybody. They don't have tiebreaker. They have tiebreaker over I5, and they still have UR to play, if I'm not mistaken.
That doesn't sound right because UR has to play GGL and I5.
Okay, they have UCO left on their schedule after this week. Okay, never mind. So RTM has tiebreaker over UR and I5, but does not over GGL if that winds up being a scenario. And then, yeah, those 3 teams vying for the second bye into the LAN tournament are I5, GGL, and UR. Landstack and Team Fish Taco now have that game lead into that last playoff berth, and then Sky and Thumb right on their heels. And we'll get to talk actually about Graceland or UCO winning a game next week, so that's pretty cool.
Ooh, very exciting. Who comes out on top? Who shows up to play? Because that's probably going to be the decider, right? Is who shows up.
I didn't want to frame it that
Oh,
way, but if
sorry.
you want to, sure. Or we could
No,
just have the double loss. We had a
that's
couple of
fine.
those last split.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even in Diamond. I want to say it was like 100 Steves versus Golden Gatekeepers wound up being a double forfeit.
Okay.
So that's always a possibility. Nobody could win. Could be super unlucky. Anyway,
That's
to focus more on the teams that are actually playing for things. Um, if you had to give me, do you think Sky or Thumb can jump any of the teams ahead of them? I guess we'll start there.
uh definitely a chance. I think that as it is now, if Thumb wins out, then they make it into playoffs. I think that's how it works because they have to play TFT and Snack. I think Thumb probably has the better shot than Sky. Um, but they kind of need one of these teams to drop, and I'm not sure who that team is. Just because Snek and TFT, TFT looks extremely strong. Snek is definitely been on an upswing. So like, there's the possibility there, but it's hard to see who ends up dropping out of this.
Yeah, Thumb, like you mentioned, has the head-to-heads left against both of those teams ahead of them. If they
Hmm.
win one, they're level and they pass them based on the tiebreaker. If they win both, they're guaranteed in. So Thumb, has the ball in their own court, which feels pretty good. Meanwhile, Sky plays I5 and then they play Graceland. So they get a free win, more than likely.
Wait,
But
that's toxic.
I statistically they haven't shown up. Like let's look. Did they show up? Okay, they showed up last week, but they had a forfeit win the week before. So
Yeah, no, it's you would think that based on standings, it would be a relatively easy week for them. So a lot of it comes down to whether or not they'll be able to secure against I5. Especially since the Iron 5 have kind of a rough schedule. If they end up dropping to Sky, then their last week is against UR, which is already at the top of the standings. So theoretically, it could end up leapfrogging I5.
yeah, so there's still a lot to play for. We're narrowed in basically on 8 teams, but we could wind up with some really ridiculous scenarios where Sky or Thumb wind up in like the top 3. I think they can even still clinch a bye if I'm not mistaken, based on like
That
super weird
sounds
results.
that doesn't sound right because the highest they can get is 5. And GGL has to play UR. So yeah, one
Let's
of
not
those
do
teams
math
has to
live
get
on
to 6 wins, right?
yeah, let's not do math live on stream, but
Sorry, no, you're
there's
right.
still
Quick
a lot
math.
to play for.
Definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
let's jump into our Platinum League now. Oklahoma Gold Rush 2-1 GSM, which GSM took a game. That's pretty cool. Kings of Baron 2-1 to I-Town. Team Name here with a 2-1 upset win over Sensei Squad. And then Shmeh 2-0'd the Meat Beats, which makes our last week. They have a bye week this week, so our last week is going to be super interesting based on these results. But a lot of really close series basically throughout Platcapped.
Definitely. And a lot of these were really interesting matchups, especially with like Sensei Squad ended up dropping. Uh, GSM finally picking up the win. I believe it was in the game where somebody ended up giving them Master Yi, and they built an entire composition around it. It was pretty silly. Um, Either way, some really interesting games this week.
But still, we've seen Oklahoma Gold Rush on this tear. They've been 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, like nothing flat. GSM, the bottom feeder, taking a game off them. Sure, it was, maybe the perfect storm of team comp. But if GSM can take a game off of them, the other Plat Cap teams are like, we can do this, right?
Uh, Technically, but here, let me run down the composition that they ran. They had Master Yi backed up by Kale, Tarek, Shen, and Vagar. I I don't know. I don't know if that's a team composition that can necessarily be replicated, and maybe that's secretly the counter to OGR. But it feels like they might have been a little trolled that week, maybe just a little bit.
Anyway, Shmeh able to topple the Meat Beats. This was the biggest one in terms of standing implications. With this win, Shmeh locks up a playoff berth and it eliminates Meat Beats from postseason.
Which is definitely surprising, especially with how much faith I personally had in the Meat Beats at the beginning of the season, and they start out 2-0 and just haven't won since. Uh, that said, Schmeh has started to look, and has looked this entire time extremely strong. Um, and it's definitely a good series out of them.
Yeah, Ed Forius up in the top lane had hell of a series against Meat Beats, by the way. 12-3 on Irelia, and then 7-1-16 on Ornn. So really solid top lane performances from Edforius, and uh, against a team that we thought was going to be in pretty decent contention. It's a really solid statement from Schmed that they're here to play.
Definitely. It makes uh the next matchup. I think Plat's on a bye, is that right? Um, is that right?
Yeah, they're on a bye.
Yeah, so anyway, in the last week they end up playing against OGR, who's also been on a tear, and that'll make it a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, and then our game of the week that turned out to meet those expectations for a change was a team name here able to take down the Sensei squad, which now every team has a loss. There's pretty big parity. Weirdly enough, this doesn't actually clinch Team Name Here's playoff spot. It does jump them into third for the time being, but doesn't clinch them. And then Sensei Squad, they're safe up at the top of the standings, but it sucks to drop a game going into playoffs.
Definitely, and it kind of makes you wonder. It's hard to see really how strong team name here is because they've had some bad losses, but they've also beaten Shme and Sensei Squad, who are both clenched for playoffs. Um, so if they do end up making it in, it's definitely a scary team. I don't think it's someone that you want to be paired against going into playoffs.
Yeah, and again, it looks like just one player popping off for team name here. It was Karasuda this time, not on his Callista. He went 14-2 on Vayne, 11-2 on Jinx in the wins. And when you don't have to rely as much on Reptar's performance and have that secondary carry, have somebody else who can really step up, that makes team name here that much more scary.
Agreed. And if they're showing that they're willing to play these hyper carry compositions, it makes it that much harder to draft against them, and it just makes them that much scarier.
Yeah.
I can't
Um,
speak English.
so our platinum cap standings, which admittedly look very strange, but these scenarios are correct. So Sensei Squad and OGR locked into playoffs, pretty much locked into those top two spots with one game remaining. Um, just to briefly go over the matchups for the last week, Shme versus OGR. Sensei Squad versus Meat Beats, Team Name Here versus Kings of Baron, and GSM versus iTown. So most of those don't have the most impact in the standings. Shme and OGR is going to be a big matchup for seeding. But
Mhm.
Team Name Here versus Kings of Baron is going to be our big decider. And shout outs to I support my team for giving me playoff scenarios, but let me read them to you as soon as I
It'll
find them.
definitely be super interesting though this matchup because both of these teams have been on a tear recently with Kings of Baron picking up Mowgli and winning several series since then, and then Team Name here coming off of taking a series off of Sensei Squad. Both of these teams are extremely strong. They're peaking at the right time, and whichever team makes it in, it will still be extremely scary to the rest of these people in the playoffs.
Yeah, so with team name here versus Kings of Baron, if team name here wins, they clinch the playoffs and the number 3 seed. They can't move out of that slot up or down, weirdly enough, if they win. And then if Kings of Baron wins, then team name here is out. Shme moves up to 3 and Kings of Baron moves up to 4. So, um, big, basically win and you're in matchup between those two teams.
Yeah, pretty massive, and it'll be a really interesting matchup, and I think it'll be a great series.
So that's all that we talk about Platcap now. They don't play this week, so say goodbye to them for another week, and we'll rejoin them in week 10 as everything heats up. So a lot of time to strategize for all of those teams.
It's kind of interesting the buy positioning coming in with one game left. Do you think a lot of teams are going to be able to take advantage of that and, do major prep, have a lot of, spicy strategies coming in, or do you think it's just another week of practice?
Well, I know at least visibly Kings of Baron looking for scrims basically every single day. I'm sure these other teams are doing the same kind of more behind the scenes with Kings of Baron just being a little bit more visible in the like captain's chat and the Discord and everything.
Hmm.
So I I'm imagining that a lot of them are using that time to get solid scrims in and maybe try to come up with a few new wrinkles for next week.
Yeah. Either way, huge matchup. It'll be super interesting to watch.
So our Bilgewater results from last week. Flex took the 2-0 win over AVRM2 by virtue of showing up on time. Maximum Effort 2-1 Sleeper Diamonds. Hog beat UCO. Return of the Middle Sticks 2-0 G5. And Hardstuck Gold 2-0 Ghost.
It's funny, the 2 on AVRM2 made me think that they won. I was like, that can't be right. That doesn't sound right. Um, but yeah, I think most of these were relatively expected, except for the Maximum Effort and G5 games, right?
Yeah. So those are the ones that we get to talk about, luckily. So Max with the 2-1 over Sleeper Diamonds. The game that we saw on stream wasn't particularly close, which if you look at the stats at the gold graphs, Max was in control for basically 2.5, 2 3/4 games of the series, but let one slip away to Sleeper Diamonds.
Yeah, and I guess I was sort of expecting a Sleeper Diamonds who have sort of been on an upswing of recent, it seems like, to be able to put up a bit more of a fight. But it just didn't seem like they showed up on that day or were able to really contend with Maximum Effort and what they had to bring.
Yeah, now that's tough for Sleeper Diamonds. They have Hardstuck Gold next, which is one of those matchups where you're looking at basically an elimination game. I think it actually is an elimination game in this case for both of them. And then Sleeper Diamonds finish off the season with Return of the Middle Sticks. So realistically, you've got to win out, but that's a tough schedule left.
Yeah, it's not easy, especially if you have to beat Return of the Middle Sticks. It's definitely not going to be easy for them. It'll be really interesting to watch, see if they're able to end up pulling it off. It could be a major story coming into playoffs.
Yeah. And then our game of the week was Return of the Middle Sticks versus G5, and the game on stream again wasn't super close, which leads you to think that the other game wasn't super close, and it really wasn't.
Yeah, tell us about it. What's your personal take on this series?
Um, well, you see the I don't know. I don't have a. I'm always bad at the takes. I just want to.
Okay. So Dramatic coming in with the carry, playing the Urgot both games. Admittedly a pretty broken champion, but had great storylines, had quite a bit of effectiveness. Surprisingly enough, we saw Hulk actually not on a carry, opted for Nunu and Sejuani during this series, playing a bit more of the supportive tank style role and just showing another look for this ROTM team that's already looking so strong. You know, if they're able to play all these different styles with Maris as a carry in the top lane or with Hulk as a carry or a tank, it's definitely a scary team. And I guess I personally sort of expected the series to be quite a bit closer than it was. Just watching the game on stream though, it didn't feel particularly close. And I don't know if that means that our team's just that much better, or if G5 just had a bad week.
Chat arguing about kill participation. But anyway, and it's difficult now. Again, you have Wing Nation getting Ari both games, popping off both games. At this point, you'd think that the list is too long to conceivably try to ban him.
Yeah, no, it seems pretty. There's definitely a few champions or a few players throughout the leagues that they just play too much shit. Like you just pick one or two things that you don't want to play against and get rid of that. And then specifically, just speaking to chat here, when I'm talking about a different look, I just mean in terms of Hulk not playing a carry, because it seems like oftentimes they'll push for him to be on a bit more bruiser style or a bit more carry style with shit like I don't know Jarvan or Kane or Vi. This time around, going the full tank route and being extremely effective with it.
So our Bilgewater standings after week 8, Return in the Middle Sticks now has a 2-game lead. It's 7-0, up in first place, and then Hog, G5, and Flex all currently in those playoff positions at 5-2. Max and Sleeper Diamonds just on the outside at 4-3. Hardstuck Gold creeping up after their win over Ghost, now sitting at 3-4, and then unfortunately Ghost, UCO, and AVRM2 will not be joining us for the playoffs.
Unlucky. So Heartstuck Gold then still has a shot. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So their last 2 weeks they play Sleeper Diamonds and Max. So they can
Okay.
pass both of those teams, and they just require a little bit of help from one
One of
of
those other
the
three teams
yeah, one of
to
those other
lose
three
out.
teams has to lose out. So,
Do they have head-to-head over any of them?
um, that is a good question, and I believe the answer is no.
Then, unless like their win percentage gets nutty and it goes to a massive tie, mathematically, can they actually get in without head-to-head and with
So they
a
could,
7 and 8 in game ones?
yeah, if you force a three-way tie and then have higher win percentage.
So
But then
if
if you've
they
lost to both of them, you're
2-0,
eliminated anyway. No, I'm just yeah, I think they might be eliminated. Not
oh, sorry, I,
100%.
I don't want to pop anyone's bubble. My bad. Either way, there's a lot of teams that are still in contention here, especially with Max and Sleeper Diamonds. We talked about Sleeper Diamonds' upcoming schedule and how it's basically win or get kicked out.
Yeah. Um Anyway, let's jump into Shadow Isle so that we can stop doing math live on stream.
Oh,
SEAL
sorry,
Team
we talked about that.
SEAL Team 6 2-0'd Land Snack. Unnecessary Roughness 2-0 No Apologies. TLM 2-1 against Oklahomies. Yellow Jackets able to sweep the Pokes, and then GMB with a 2-1 over Archaeo.
Yeah, I think that the big one here is definitely Unnecessary Roughness 2-0ing No Apologies.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Let's let's talk about TLM though. 2-1 against Oklahomies, which is promising for Oklahomies, but it's the rest of this is tough. Everything is difficult from here on out. So there's no moral victory in taking a game off of TLM. You really needed that series.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not what they were hoping for. Um, it's definitely nice to take a game off of TLM, especially since with how strong TLM's been. I guess partially I'm kind of surprised that that's how it ended up turning out, but just not the best for their standings.
Yeah, and then TLM, has the hiccup. They showed some weakness against No Apologies as well, and now coming into the match against Unnecessary Roughness, are you worried about them matching up against UXR?
Uh, Maybe. I think it'll definitely be an interesting series with both of them sitting there at the top. Um, that said, I still think they're an extremely strong team, and well, I'm not sure how that one will end out. I don't know if we can, call them goners for dropping one game.
Yeah. So anyway, Unnecessary Roughness just honestly, this was not a close series against No Apologies, which I think surprised a lot of people coming into it. In particular, Swampfire had a really big series in top lane, 10-6 on a Dr. Mundo, 9-3 on Fiora. But Unnecessary Roughness looks like they're trying to cement their case as the team to beat in Shadow Isles.
Yeah, definitely. They're absolutely just. It seemed like a league ahead of No Apologies, who was right there with them, but just as far as the series actually turned out, it just wasn't even close. They weren't able to get their AD carry rolling. They weren't able to get their mid lane rolling. They weren't able to get a lead, and they just weren't able to win.
Yeah, and now No Apologies has they've dropped two in a row,
Yeah,
which isn't good. It was against Unnecessary Roughness and TLM, so it's not like world ending, but it does mean that now they need to take care of business the rest of the season.
for sure. I mean, they're still sitting up there near the top, and losing against the two number one teams isn't the worst thing in the world. Um, but yeah, no, they definitely want to get a turnaround, if nothing else, for morale going into playoffs.
And oh, this is where I would put Shadow Isle standings if I had them. But I do, so I'm just gonna drag this onto the screen. Anyway, um, live from the spreadsheet. Here we go. Shadow Isle standings though. UXR and TLM tied at 7-0. No Apologies now 2 games back, but still fairly content there in the third position at 5-2. Yellow Jackets with their win kind of cements, not cements, it's not cement at all. They do stake a claim for the fourth position though. Now they have a game lead over Oklahoma's SEAL Team 6 and GMB. OSU, RKO, and SNEC now unfortunately all eliminated.
Yeah, and still just a massive race for that last playoff position. You might think that 0P is relatively comfortable where they're at. It's kind of hard for other teams to pass them, but in terms of that fourth spot, there are just so many teams vying for that, and so many teams so close to it.
Yeah. So there. That was your scuffed moment of the podcast, hopefully. But predictions now from last week. Everybody had a relatively good week, but Akato had the best week again. Not surprising. So he's actually gonna grow his lead back out to 4 games over me and 5 over the viewers.
Yeah, first one to break 100 correct. I ended up getting 2 of them perfect this week. Oh, Diamond and Shadow Isles. So I mean, just smurfing. Everyone who didn't believe in I5, I'm sorry, but dropping another game and being a little bit further behind, that's your reward for it.
Yeah, so it's still close enough that anybody can overtake with a with an interesting week, but we'll see how this week plays out. We'll go over those predictions at the end because I didn't have time to put them in. So
It's fine. Realistically, it's with how close we are, like 4 games, like that could easily be done in a single week, right? Like, you just pick a couple upsets, and I get a few wrong, and we're right back up there.
yeah. So anyway, playoffs clinched for these teams. Uh, Return to the Middle Sticks, Diamond and Gold both represented. TLM, Unnecessary Roughness, and Shmeh all able to finish off clinching this week, uh, which for some of these teams means LAN, which is Shmeh automatically. Return to the Middle Sticks, Diamond looking like they're headed to LAN. The rest of these teams still have quarterfinal games left to go, though.
Yeah, definitely. And Return of the Middle Six just showing that they're an extremely strong organization here, man. They're smurfing in diamond, they're smurfing in gold. Are we gonna see a plat team next split?
You never know. Maybe it'll
You guys
happen.
gonna sweep everything?
I can't spoil every. I can't spoil other people's plans. So
Wait, can you give us the? I don't know. We need the leak. We need the exclusive here
maybe
on
at the end
stream.
of this season we'll get the winners interview or something. I don't know.
The winners. Holy shit! You guys are already winning. Okay.
Anyway, unfortunately, on the other side of the coin, we do have some eliminations to take care of. And a lot of them this week, honestly. So, Graceland University from Diamond, and I think that's the only Diamond team, actually, that's on the list. From Platinum Capped, the Meat Beats eliminated this week as well. Uh, Meat Beats were a team that we had pretty high expectations of, and ultimately not going to be joining us at the LAN.
Yeah, they slumped at the wrong time, and that platinum division is extremely unforgiving. With only the top 4 making it, and you only get, 1 round against everyone.
Yeah, the rest of these teams all from gold. The UCO Broncos, Ghost, Piltover Pokes, Landsneck, and Team RKO all eliminated this week. All saying our final goodbyes to them. I think the big surprise on the list is Piltover Pokes. Last split, the number 1 seed from Demacia. This split, bottom of Shadow Isles.
Yeah, definitely not probably how they were hoping the season could go for it. Um, they just weren't able to pick up the wins when they needed them.
Yeah, so thank you for the Fs in chat, and appreciate the respect that we're paying toward these teams. Hopefully, we'll see them again next split. Maybe we'll see the return miracle run of the Piltover Pokes from the basement back to the top of the standings. But for now, it's a feels bad man. Diamond schedule for this week. I never know how
Oh
to
man.
transition that one. Let's segue. Anyway, um, this is a stack schedule this week, but Landsneck versus Rotom, Team Fish Taco versus Thumb, Graceland versus UCO, which is even kind of hype if one of those if both of them show up, GGL versus Unlucky Retribution, and Sky versus Iron 5. I have slides made for everybody except Graceland versus UCO, so let's get into it.
Wait, Graceland versus UCO. We need to talk about that one, right?
No,
Come on, man.
we don't
Oh,
actually.
okay, never mind. So Snake versus RTM, right?
Yeah,
This is so realistically, Return the Middle Six has been extremely strong. and they're not showing much weakness. It'll be really interesting to see if Snake is maybe able to poke a hole and keep Tendies down. Their strong point for Schneck really is that bot lane with Rito Torchic and potentially Hamana, potentially Killering, potentially PB Doughboy. I don't know. They have a different support every week, so maybe they can take advantage of Force Shot, who did have a better week last week. It'll be interesting to track, although I feel like Return of the Middle Six probably has a bit of an edge here. Maybe just the tiniest bit of an edge.
Yeah, the 2 game advantage coming in, but anything can really happen. And as we see, this lineup isn't necessarily the lineup for Landsnack, and that's always a consideration when you come in.
Yeah, no, it's impossible to prep against them. They have like 10 fucking people. It's the 100 Steves version 2.0.
I think I
So
called them 100 snacks in Diamond Chat,
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
um, but yeah, really big game, and this is honestly, I don't want to say the least impactful of the 4 games, but it feels like the one where the teams are the furthest apart right now.
For sure, out of all 5 matchups, the only thing that I'd really like to see out of our team this week is Liposuction Lane is coming off of a honestly pretty bad week against Team Fish Taco. That's who they played last week, right?
Yep.
Where Azuki just kind of shit on him the entire series, for lack of a better term. So I'd like to see Liposuction Rain bounce back and try to cement himself as being one of the best top laners in the league against Jack Loves Lamp, the mainstay of Diamond Capped, who has had some good games and had some bad games. Definitely a matchup to watch here, I think.
Yeah. Our next one to talk about is our bubble game, basically between Team Fish Taco and those Thumb guys from Spy Kids. And we talked about this already a little bit, but Thumb has Team Fish Taco and Landsnack left on the schedule. If they win both, they're in. So destiny in the hands of a team in 8th place, which is kind of strange to see with 2 weeks left.
Yeah, and if I were to give a prescription for TFT to win this series, it would be to not give Weenie Acel. I don't realize why I have to keep saying this every week. Quit giving Weenie Acel. Holy shit, guys, just fucking ban it. Um, that said, otherwise this should be a really interesting game. I would personally probably put TFT as the stronger team here, especially coming into the later end of the season. Puffles Mia has been popping off. Azuki really showed his dominance in the top lane over Liposuction lane last week. And then Heimerdoodles is slowly becoming one of the better junglers within the league. He just applies so much pressure. It'll be a really interesting matchup, I think.
Yeah, but you have to look at the the momentum, the big mo for Thumb. They started 0-3, right? Since
Hmm.
then, they're 3-1. That can't be understated. Their only loss during that streak was to Return of the Middle Sticks, but taking down uh, some good teams on the process, taking down GGL, you have to feel like they have a lot of momentum at least coming in, whereas Team Fish Taco has been pretty up and down throughout the whole split.
Wait a second. Momentum. Do you know what champion has momentum? Aurelian Soul. If he runs faster in one direction, he continues to build up momentum. Oh my god, we figured it out. Either way, I mean, when you look at Thumb's win against GGL, it feels like it was kind of troll. Not sure how much, uh, really, how much credit we were really able to give them for that. If they're able to take a win over TFT here, then I think it really cements them as one of the stronger teams. Be it'll be really interesting. This is sort of like a proving point for them, I'd say.
If you can't beat Weenie's Acel, you don't deserve the win. Yikes. Okay. Our other seeding game is going to be Iron 5 versus Sky Zero. This is the game that is, I think, the furthest apart, 2-7. Yeah, in the
Mhm.
standings. So,
Technically the furthest apart, but either way, I think that there's the potential here for an upset. Potential. If Sky pulls out Swain's support, they probably have a pretty good shot. Or if they're able to get a good dual lane advantage, or rather duo advantage with Dude Perfect and Almighty. Um, They have the potential to upset here with Iron 5, who have kind of had their mid jungle duo slumping a bit. Perhaps not quite as oppressive as we might have hoped. That said, Iron 5 coming off of the win of GGL, um, they're a hard team to beat at this point.
Yeah. Our game of the week, as voted by the fans, is going to be GGL versus Unlucky Retribution. The 5-2 teams, third and fourth seed right now, basically playing. Winner will still have a shot at the bye. Loser probably doesn't, based on tiebreakers.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting, especially with GGL coming off of a loss this last week. And two of their losses in the last two series that they've played. Uh, we'll see if they're able to bounce back and show up against UR. That said, UR coming in with a brand new top laner with Sacred Strike taking over for player John. And with a hard schedule left over, they have to play GGL and then Iron 5. This is a game that they really want to win. If they win here, then they can sort of relax just a little bit in terms of making it into playoffs. Um, Otherwise, they have two really hard weeks here.
Yeah, and for GGL, we talked about it a little bit, but their last two games that they've actually played, not counting a forfeit win over GU, they've dropped to Iron 5, they've dropped to those thumb guys from Spy Kids. And part of it, the first one you kind of read off, maybe they didn't have Koala. Against Iron 5, they had Koala. He didn't look his best during any of those three games.
He didn't. He definitely had some points where he looked pretty good in game one. Right, game two, there was a point where he's like 0-6 on the Silas. He was still applying a lot of pressure, but he was still 0-6. Uh, and then game three, if you looked at Discord during it, he might have been having Discord issues because it looked like he was deafened and muted. I don't know if that was a little bit of tilt, but it'll definitely be interesting to see if GGL is able to turn it around after really disappointing weeks for them. And they're playing UR this week, TFT next week, a team that's sort of on the rise, a team that's really strong in TFT. They need to pick up a win somewhere to get some more momentum going into playoffs.
Yeah, and it's worth noting the only team in Diamond that has clinched a playoff spot is Return to the Middle Sticks. The rest of these teams could all potentially fall out of playoffs with the right combination of fuckery that happens.
Yeah, and I mean, how tragic would it be for GGL, who started out at 4-0, to not be able to make playoffs, especially coming in off of winning last split. It would take a certain amount of fuckery, um, but how spicy would that be, though?
Um, I think that's yeah. Okay, so that's gonna be it for Diamond for now. We'll recap some predictions later on. Um, I'll make sure to show those on stream before we go so that you can hold everybody accountable for their picks. But we'll jump into gold now. For Bilgewater, Weird Flex but okay versus Return of the Middle Sticks, Ghost versus Hog, Hardstuck Gold versus Sleeper Diamonds, AVRM2 versus G5, and UCO versus Max. Only really two games that I think are substantial. This is going to be
Hmm.
one of them with Hardstuck Gold versus Sleeper Diamonds. Both teams right now on the outside looking in of the playoff pictures, but we we talked maybe a little bit about Hardstuck maybe being eliminated, but they still could come in and blue shell both Sleeper Diamonds and Max here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, they could definitely fuck over Sleeper Diamonds this week. As Sleeper Diamonds, we talked about it a little bit. We previewed it. They're sort of win to stay in, and if they lose, then they're pretty much out at this point. So this is definitely a team that they have to beat. You have to beat everybody below you. At this point, if you're dropping games, it just I'm not sure if they'll be able to make land. That said, it should be a pretty good matchup. We'll see if Xander Vastora is able to come back and have the effect that he's had in previous weeks. Last week kind of having an off week.
Yeah. Our game of the week is going to be Weird Flex but okay versus Return of the Middle Sticks as voted by the fans. Um, Rumor has it that Middle Sticks not going to have the services of their not even top three, maybe even bottom three top laner in Meristematics. So um, they have the opportunity to bring in somebody who can actually play top lane for a change, and maybe that's going to be what they need to get past Flex.
Maybe so. We'll see if they have a little bit more success with a real top laner. As Marriage Dramatic, just he can't play tanks, he can't play carries. His Urgot, man, it says 8-0-8, but how good is 8-0-8? It should be like 10-0-8, right? Like if he was actually a top three top laner. Um, Either way, this could definitely be a really good series. We'll see if Flex is the counter to ROTM. Admittedly, coming in with a different lineup, they might not be as strong as we would normally expect. Either way, it'll be a really interesting matchup and definitely something you want to watch.
Yeah, and Flex is a team that is very difficult to prepare for. Currently, the name is Rat Rider Man for Joey, but he's had some really strong carry performances. They have Rat Boy 69 as well, who's been in the shadows all split, ready to make an impact in Gold Capped. I think that this winds up being maybe a closer game than people expect.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to pinpoint exactly how good Flex is week to week, and this could really be a statement win for them. If they're able to take it off of ROTM, does it clinch them a spot? Question mark.
I don't
Either way, it
think
would be
so.
massive for them in terms of cementing them near the top here.
Yeah, and for Flex, they have if they can win this one and they can beat Hog, they could potentially have the number one seed sitting there at the end of uh, of everything.
Yeah, no, the potential is definitely there. Either way, this should be a really good series, I think.
Yeah. So Shadow Isles this week. GMB versus Landsneck, RKO versus Piltover Pokes, Oklahomies versus Yellow Jackets, Unnecessary Roughness takes on Tastes Like Armageddon, and No Apologies versus SEAL Team 6. Before we jump forward, if GMB beats Landsneck, they're in a decent position. But the other game to highlight before the two big ones is going to be No Apologies versus SEAL Team 6. If ST6 wins that one, they could they have a claim and they could be able to jump over No Apologies at the end of the season. If No Apologies win, it just kind of cements quid pro quo. They're the third best team in Shadow Isles, um, but yeah, that's a pretty big game for playoff implications. But the two biggest ones are going to be Yellow Jackets versus Oklahomies. I go talk.
As both these teams are, as you can see, extremely close in the standings. Yellow Jackets sitting at fourth, and the other team sitting at fifth. They're direct competitors to each other, and whoever ends up winning this, it's hard for the losing team to get out over the other team, right? Because the other team will, at best have head to head, or just a 2-game lead. Either way, it's pretty do or die for both these teams. Super important matchup for them.
Yeah, and Yellow Jackets, I wanted to note, I didn't get it on the slide for some reason, but their last game is against RKO, which one of the bottom teams, they have the opportunity to maybe punch up, but if Yellow Jackets wins this game, you have to imagine that they're locked into either that third or fourth spot and make the playoffs. Therefore, coming up with our expectation that we had for them, all split.
It feels like every week we talk about the expectations that we do have for them, and staying in the middle of the pack. If they're able to take a win here, then they're sort of living up to that. If they drop it, then it's pretty yikes for them going into the final here.
Yeah, if they drop it, then you're looking at Oklahomies or ST6 as that fourth team basically in Shadow Isles. In particular, I really want to watch the bottom lane. Leave it to Wally and January are two of the I think underrated 80 carries in Shadow Isles. Although honestly, 80 carries in Shadow Isles, goodness, there are some really good 80 carries in Shadow Isles. So even saying January and Leave It to Wally are underrated doesn't necessarily even put them in top half.
Yeah,
But
especially January, who's sort of just quietly been putting up massive numbers and really just being a beast in the carry that this team really needs.
yeah, number one in kills, by the way, in Shadow Isles is January, and number one in kills per game by 1.7 over No Mind, who you think of as 1v9ing for No Apologies. So Um, maybe not even underrated so much as we need to talk about this guy as the carry in Shadow Isles right now.
Hard agree. Hard agree.
Um, Although Godzilla in the chat, let's shout him out. Godzilla setting up January perfectly in order to have the success. Anyway, uh, our game of the week, though, the two undefeated teams, the big clash we've all been waiting for. It feels like it's all been building up throughout the split, and here it is: Unnecessary Roughness versus TLM. Do you think it'll live up to the hype? Number one. Number two, who do you got?
I definitely think it'll live up to the hype. Both of these teams are just so strong and really showing that they're a league above everybody else within their division. And I think it'll be a really close series. Probably 2-1. Probably some really close games. But at the end of the day, I have TLM coming out on top.
You have TLM. Okay. I actually. Da, da, da.
I think you took UXR, right?
I took UXR. So, um, the reasoning just recency. We look at the opponent. They both played No Apologies recently.
Hmm.
TLM struggled with No Apologies. You could argue that it's a clash of styles where No Mind matches up maybe a little bit better against Levi's and Silver Spade, but uh, TLM struggled against them. Unnecessary Roughness had exactly zero trouble. They did this swap with Swampfire up to the top lane, Dillinger in jungle, which adds another wrinkle that maybe wasn't present before. And I think Unnecessary Roughness looking like the strongest team right now, but TLM, you
Yeah, I
can't
think
you can't count out Seymour and Silver Spade, honestly. And I think that
Seymour,
that's
Silver
difficult.
Spade, even Levi's and Panther just is such a strong lineup here. It's really hard to see this not being a massive clash here between two of the top teams.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this one on stream. And yeah, I think that that's it. I didn't make another slide. Okay. Um, so let's take a look at predictions and stuff. Let me pull up ours so that we have everybody. Okay,
Are you all right?
so maybe could be
Do you need to
dying.
go take a drink or?
We'll power through this last little segment here. Uh, but yeah, our match voting was actually super close in Diamond this week. GGL Unlucky Retribution won by 2 votes over Landsnack versus Middlesticks. Nobody actually cared about this Sky Zero versus I5 game.
Yeah, we'll see how close the viewers think that series is.
And then already a surprise though, Return of the Middlesticks, 29 votes to 1 over Landsnack.
I think RNCM at this point is just sort of the safe pick. You know, they're sitting significantly higher on the leaderboard. I think it's pretty reasonable for people to assume that they would have very little trouble with Snack.
It looks like we both. Oh,
I think
we'll
we
go
both
over our
think.
picks at the end.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Team Fish Taco, 70 to 30 over those thumb guys from Spy Kids. It's 21 to 9 in votes, which honestly, again, a little bit more separated than I thought it would be.
I mean, I think that a lot of people do have faith in Team Fish Taco, who just has been so strong in the last few weeks and is looking so strong, especially with team fighting. This is just such a hard team to beat. I think that the Thumb guys will have a lot of trouble with them.
Yeah. UCO gets the vote over Graceland, actually pretty substantially. So, that being said, Graceland showed up last week and UCO didn't.
See, I know from my perspective, I ended up going with UCO because I figured they've shown a willingness to just throw 5 random people together, and I expect someone to show up. Hopefully, someone.
Hopefully. There's also a rumor that their leadership at the top might be changing here. I have a little inside information on that, so
Oh,
we'll
do
see
you?
how UCO winds up. But
Is this the
our
leak on
game of the
stream?
week voting, Unlucky Retribution gets the 2 vote win over GGL. That's the closest vote
Wow.
I've seen in a while, but the fans have faith in Unlucky Retribution.
Yeah, GGL just sort of burnt people last week. They've kind of been on a downward swing, and that said, I guess I'm surprised that Unlucky Retribution, a team who they're sitting at 4-2, right? But I don't know, or 5-2 rather. I don't know if they're as strong as their record indicates. I know when I'm looking at them, I see them as probably the weakest of the 5-2 teams. That said, if they're able to pull out over GL, I mean that's a significant win. That's a statement win that really cements them at the top there.
Yeah, and then the last one, a lot of faith in Iron 5 though, 23-6 over Sky.
Yeah, I mean we saw the last time the Iron Five were in the voting, it was 95-5. A little bit closer this time, but still pretty significant. We'll see if Iron Five are able to stave off the underdogs here.
For completion's sake, both Aikedo and I went with GGL over EUR, so the disagreement with the viewers. Other than that, we do agree. So 4 out of the 5 the same, but the GGL series we both have GGL. You guys have Unlucky Retribution.
Ooh, it'll be interesting to see who ends up gaining a game there.
Yeah, into Bilgewater, you can see the votes not super close in this one. Interestingly, the second pick game was Ghost versus Hog, which uh, should be two teams that are on completely opposite sides of the standings, but you know,
And that's probably just Hog, pulling their influence, a little bit of popularity. But either way, I think that we definitely ended up with the biggest matchup here.
yeah. So yeah, 66 to 33% is actually one of the closer votes that Middle Sticks have had all season, but faith in Middle Sticks over Flex. Hog gets 85% over Ghost, which for people believing in Ghost is kind of surprising. And then Sleeper Diamonds actually getting 76% of the vote over Hardstuck Gold is also a pretty big share, especially given Hardstuck Gold's coming off of the win. But,
Yeah, I feel like that matchup's probably just a tiny bit closer than those percentages indicate.
ooh, and a full 15% of you guys believing in AVRM2 to somehow resurrect themselves and beat G5.
People saw the two people who had faith last week. This time around, it's four people. It's a miracle.
Man, if they double again, they could come close. That 8 votes. Whew.
Whew.
Um. Anyway, and then Max gets a pretty big percentage of the vote over UCO. Everything. Yeah, we agree on everything, so nothing super noteworthy. But I know that we're gonna have some differences in Shadow Isles, so I'm actually surprised that this wasn't as big a vote for UXR versus TLM. But people kind of appreciating some of the other games.
Yeah.
Anyway, GMB 90% over Landsneck, which isn't super surprising. Piltover Pokes actually get a pretty decent chunk over RKO. Uh, Yellow Jackets over Oklahomies 20-7.
Yeah.
And then TLM actually getting 60% over Unnecessary Roughness is 40, which maybe some people already know the results of the game. Could be hacking.
Wait, what does that mean?
Anyway, and
Are you
then
split?
No Apologies versus SEAL Team 6. So actually, you guys all agree. I have Unnecessary Roughness over TLM though. So I guess not a whole lot of disagreement this week. That's
Yeah,
what,
just a couple of games in there.
two differences? So not a
I
whole
think
lot of
that's
movement in
right.
the standings. If you guys want to pass Akato, you gotta pick some upsets.
Yeah, if we pick the same shit every week, then can't close the gap.
Anyway, that's gonna do it for us this week. Next week we'll jump in and have yeah, we're gonna preview the last week of the regular season. If I'm feeling up to it, we might do the airing of grievances, but we'll see how this week goes, honestly. So
We'll play it by ear, but
anyway,
yeah.
thanks guys for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast this week, and we'll see you next week. We'll try to do better.
Yep, thanks for tuning in.
Thoughts on Max's new jungler? Does Max have a new jungler? Oh, it's Chimichungus. I don't know. I honestly didn't get to watch the game. Straight up. Did you get to watch the Max game? Oh no, we casted it. Never mind. I don't know what I'm saying. I mean, I didn't make any note of Chimichungus like inting, so that's pretty good compared to some of the other junglers. He didn't execute to his buff.
That's generally speaking a relatively good sign, right?
Yeah.
What did he play that game? Was he playing like...
Bilgewater.
Was it Nunu?
That sounds right. Let me look.
I don't know. I don't think anyone looks good on Nunu, right? Like every Nunu is exactly the same.
Nunu Trundle. So it would have been a Nunu game.
Yeah, I don't remember a Trundle. We would have talked about Trundle.
Man, they got like the same ass team comp in all 3 games.
Yeah, no changes there from Sleeper Diamonds.
Dr. Mundo Nunu, Ari Ash Nami, Cho'Gath Nunu, Rumble Ash Nami, Dr. Mundo Trundle. Like, did you guys just, they banned like 2 things, so you just picked those? That's funny.
It's probably the same shit every game.
Yeah, I appreciate
that. You gotta
that.
respect those. Sleeper Diamonds going in with a plan and sticking to it.
Yeah. Max.
Banging the issue that wasn't their plan. I'm sorry?
Max, not Sleeper Diamond.
No, I mean Sleeper Diamonds in terms of like a ban strategy, right? Like they didn't say like, oh, you know, a Dr. Mundo sure was a problem. That Nami sure was a problem. I guess both teams, kinda.
Anyway, stream's off. Well, stream will be off in a second. See you guys.